All right, so we are on our final lesson of Unit 3, and what this lesson is going to focus on is using all the relationships that we've talked about to set up and solve, all right, equations. All right, so to kind of do a real quick refresher over everything that we've done, right? So I can write and solve equations using my knowledge of angles formed by the intersection of transverse parallel lines. So the knowledge of angles part is what we're going to review right here with our opener. So what I would like you to do, all right, is as soon as I'm done explaining this, is pause the video, all right, and then complete the opener here where you have to go through and look at each pair of angles, all right, state the type of angle. So that would be corresponding, alternate interior, those type of things. What's the relationship? And then if there is a relationship, all right, write out that equation of what it would be, right? If there's none, just type none and it'll be none all the way across. So go ahead, pause the video, do that, flip it back on, and we will check out your work. All right, so let's go through each pair and see how you did. Okay, so let's look at 9 and 5. So 9 and 5 are definitely corresponding angles. Now, because 9 and 5 are corresponding angles and both are touching our parallel lines, that means that the corresponding angles are congruent, which means the measure of angle 9 is equal to measure of angle 5. All right, so remember the relationship part is dependent upon if we have parallel lines for our corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, same side interior, same side exterior. So if they're not on the parallel lines, right, then there's no relationship. We know what type they are, but there's not a relationship. All right, so let's look at 7 and 10. So here we go, 7 and 10 are alternate interior angles. Once again, 7 is touching parallel line here, 10 is touching the other parallel line here. So that means that the same side interior angles are supplementary, which means the measure of 7 plus the measure of angle 10 is equal to 180 degrees. Now 2 and 4, this is a review for you, all right? 2 and 4 are vertical angles, all right? They are congruent. They will always be congruent. Doesn't matter what kinds of lines we have, right? If we have vertical angles, they're always congruent. So the measure of angle 2 is equal to measure of angle 4. All right, let's look at 13 and 11. So here are 13 and 11. They are definitely alternate exterior angles. All right, now notice though, 13 is on touching line N. 11 is touching line I. N and I are not parallel. And because they are not parallel, all right, there's no relationship, which means there's no equation. All right, so let's move to 8 and 10. So we see 8 and 10 here. All right, they are alternate interior. Now, once again, 8 is touching the parallel line here. 10 has our parallel line here. So therefore, they are congruent, which means the measure of angle 8 is equal to measure of angle 10. All right, now we're looking at 8 and 7. All right, just inside the picture, I'll slide it back down here. All right, now once again, 8 and 7 are a linear pair. Doesn't matter what kind of lines we have, right? A linear pair, all right, will always be supplementary. All right, and therefore the measure of angle 8 plus the measure of angle 7 is going to equal to 180 degrees. And then to wrap up here, all right, angle 9 and angle 3. Well, angle 9 and angle 3, right? Okay, they're not on the same transversal, right? They're not touching either, they're both touching parallel lines, right? But they are not connected by the same transversal. They're not vertical angles. They're not linear pair, all right? So in this case, we have no relationship, no type of angle, all right, to state. So hopefully that kind of refreshes your memory on all the various types of angles that you may have to work with. So now let's do a few examples of writing those relationships. So let's flip the page here and let's look at, all right, problem 1 here. All right, so once again, it always starts with what kind of angles do we have, and then what is the relationship based on that, all right, type of angle. So now when we look at our problem here, all right, we want to solve for the value of S. And so I look at my two angles. Well, these two angles are corresponding angles. They are corresponding angles with parallel lines. Therefore, all right, so what type of angles do we have? We have corresponding angles. Okay, and then what is the relationship between these angles? They have to be congruent, all right, because we have parallel lines. So that means that 3s minus 10 equals to 110. And then once again, now we just get into that solving process, subtract 110 from both sides. So 3s minus 120 is equal to 0. 120 minus 120, that is a 2 there, all right, is equal to 0. So that means 3s is equal to 120 divided by 3, and that means s is equal to 40. All right, now if we are correct, if I plug s in here, it should give me 110. So 3 times 40 is 120. 120 minus 10 is 110. So I know, in fact, that I am right. So really go back and take that value, plug it back in, self-check to know if you are right or wrong. And if you're wrong, go back and make an adjustment. All right, let's move down to number 2. All right, so once again, what type of angles do you have? So I look at these two angles. The type of angles that I have are same side interior. All right, same side interior. Now, once again, they're same side interior on, all right, our parallel lines here. So that means that we know that those angles should be supplementary. All right, and remember, supplementary means they add to be 180 degrees. So 9u plus 30 plus 8u minus 3 equals to 180 degrees. All right, now we just go through our solving process. So let's start by combining like terms. 8u and 9u gives me 17u. All right, 30 minus 3 is 27, and that's equal to 180. All right, so subtract 180 to get this guy equal to 0. So 17u minus 153 is equal to 0. All right, 153 minus 153 is equal to 0. So 17u is equal to 153. And I'm just going to verify this on my calculator. So I'm going to divide 153 by 17. All right, and that tells me that u should be 9. All right, u should be 9. Now, once again, let's go back into our expressions here. All right, and let's verify. All right, so 9 times 9 is 81. 81 plus 30. All right, this angle is 111 degrees. All right, so let's go into here. Now, 9 into u here. So 8 times 9 is 72. 72 minus 3, that is 69 degrees. All right, and then I can see that 111 plus 69 is in fact 180. All right, so I know that my answer is correct. All right, so let's flip the page and let's look at problem number 3. All right, problem number 3 here. All right, so now once again we start by, let me get this into the frame here, sorry about that. All right, so we're going to solve for P. So once again we want to look at the types of angles we have. Okay, and so these are alternate exterior angles. So we have alternate, there we go, see if I can get it out here, exterior. All right, okay, and we have alternate exterior angles with parallel lines. So we know that those two angles should be congruent. All right, so now that allows us to set up our equation. So negative 18p minus 20 has to equal to 2p plus 80. So if we work to get this equal to 0, subtract 2p from both sides, subtract 80 from both sides. All right, I get negative 20p minus 100 is equal to 0. All right, so now 100 minus 100 is 0. So negative 20p is 100. All right, and if we divide by negative 20, all right, we get negative 5 for an answer. Now, be careful. Remember, it's not about what the variable is, okay? So some of you had questions about that. Is it okay for the variable to be negative? And it is, as long as when we plug it back in, we get a positive angle value. All right, so remember, it's not about what the variable is, it's about what the result is once we plug that variable in. All right, so if I do negative 18 times negative 5, that is a positive 90. All right, that's positive 90. And then 90 minus 20 is 70. So this angle is 70 degrees. That's totally fine, right? It's totally fine to have, all right, an angle that's 70 degrees. And if I go down here, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 80 is also 70. All right, so that works. They are equal like we wanted them to be. So we know that this value of P, which is negative 5, is good to go. So remember, it's not about what the value of the variable is. It's about whether or not when I plug it back in, right? Remember, two things have to be true about our angles, right? They have to be positive, right? And then you have to have a measure between 0 and 180. All right, so let's do one more problem here. Let's do problem 4 to wrap up the video for today. All right, so now looking at our picture, what type of angles do we have? And this is a review question. All right, this is a review question. So once again, let's review that this angle symbol right here means right angle. That means that's 90 degrees, which then implies that these two angles are also 90 degrees. So what type of angles do we have here? Is complementary. All right, so a little bit of review there. Okay, all right, so what's that relationship? That means that, all right, angle 1 plus angle 2 has to be 90 degrees, right? Okay, so 26 plus 3x plus 1 has to be 90. All right, so if I combine like terms on the other side, so 3x plus 27 is equal to 90. Subtract 90 from both sides. So 3x minus 63 is equal to 0. And that means 3x equals to 63, which means x is equal to 21. Now, once again, let's go back and plug it in, right? So 3 times 21. So 3 times 21 is 63 plus 1 is 64. 26 plus 64 is, in fact, 90. All right, now, a couple of units ago when we were doing this type of problem, I had a student ask, it's like, and that student said, okay, well, if I know this is 90 and I know this is 26, shouldn't I know that this angle is 64? And so the answer is yes. You could have said 3x plus 1 has to be 64. And then notice if I go through the same process here, 3x minus 63 is equal to 0. Notice I get to that same step here. So I will, in fact, get to the same answer, all right, by either process. I can add both angles equal to 90, all right? Or since I knew this was 26, I could find what this angle should be, and I could set it equal to that, all right? So you can get there with either process. All right, that wraps up our last video for this unit. All right, we'll finish this lesson in class. See you then.